Apparently, the UK isn't worthy of forming the European Union. But you know what? I don't care, Hyperant, because I'm gonna form it my own way. And I joined in, justified on two filthy nations so I could steal their treasury. And usually you see me getting the ignore safety regulations and improve infrastructure policies. But in this game, I'm not going Factory Apple 2. I'm planning to be the most annoying Rise of Nations player of all time, so I go with the best option to do that, Tank Tech. And as you know from these two videos, static is the best way to go with tanks early game, so that's exactly what I picked. What surprised me was that France was actually going for Jersey and Guernsey, which usually doesn't happen because most French players aren't that smart. So this made me know that he had more than the usual 3.5 brain cells that a French player has. I wasn't able to take both countries' treasuries, but I was still able to make 3 civilian factories, which will help me out with being able to afford my military spending and research spending. This is another thing that players who rush tech usually don't do. Since they're rushing tech, they don't care about research spending even if they can afford it. So even if you are rushing tech, always go for research spending because it will greatly support you. I went for the Isle of Man next, as it's another micronation where I can borrow their money permanently. I made 3,000 tanks and decided to declare on France. I had no clue what this guy was doing, and he only rushed 600 tanks into my 3,000 stack, and he decided that a better country to focus on was the AI Germany. Like I walked into Paris, took it, and that's when he decided that it was time to fight back. After I took over Paris, I started to auto capture, and France had some infantry stacked together on the southern part of France, so he used them to retake its cities. This is when Spain started to send his whole army to take back France and try to land on my mainland. And at the beginning, I wasn't really worried about Spain because I thought that he would just sit back and try a white peace, but he did get involved in the war. Usually, I leave a single unit on the person I'm invading's cap when I auto capture, but this time I didn't, which made it so Spain was almost able to retake his capital. So now I'm in a pretty bad position as France has almost most of his cities back, and Spain has started to stop retaking France and focus on my mainland. Germany became a player and declared on me, so now I find myself in a 3v1 position, and I have Spain auto-capturing and successfully landing on my mainland, France recovering and pushing back into his cities, and Germany using his navy to support his tanks to land. I had to spam a bunch of tanks to stop those German tanks from landing, and I also sent a 1,000 tank stack into Spain so I could try taking his capital and remove his threat from the war. I also started retaking France, which basically made it from a 3v1 to a 2v1. With the tanks that I used to retake France, I started to also auto-capture Germany, which put me in a much better position where now I was pushing into all 3 countries at once. I flanked the tanks that Spain had on its capital and easily won, so I took over Madrid and started to auto-capture Spain, which made me completely start to focus on Germany. I moved more tanks into France so I could keep pushing into Germany and make sure that I take him out before he could try and land again. I took out Germany's troops on the Rhineland and I started auto-capturing. He also had no more troops on his capital, which made me know that he was either in debt or he had no manpower. Finally, after me being in a horrible situation and forced to be defending with everything I had, I was able to push back successfully, defeating Germany, Spain, and France. This is only the start though, as there are still many players in Europe which aren't under the Great Monarchy, so I just fight on Poland, as the Polish will now be British. I justified on micronations to keep me out of debt, but I was too slow in doing the peace deal, so I went into debt when I declared on Poland. But that's fine. I pushed 1.4 thousand tanks into him, and then pieced Spain and France, and split my troops so I could flank his infantry that were on his capital. As you know, this comes out as no surprise. My tanks destroyed his infantry and took over his capital, so that is Poland out of the way. After I took over his capital, I started auto-capturing as usual, and then I started to justify on Hungary because he was training up troops near me. Like, buddy, are you seriously trying to avoid the chance of your people being under the great king of Britain? So I declared on Hungary instantly, and he rushed his troops from Czech to his capital, which was a smart move. So I also pushed my tanks into his cap, which was very stupid because I made them go through the extremely mountainous parts of Slovakia, which meant that his troops were guaranteed to get to his capital before mine, but that wasn't too big of a problem, as I moved my troops that were auto-capturing Spain into Czech, and I moved them through the right terrain to make sure that I wouldn't go through any mountainous parts before getting to his capital. I slowly moved through his cities before finally going for his capital, which was extremely easy to take over. You guys already know, auto capturing is the best feature in this game, so that's exactly what I did after taking over his capital. I saw that Switzerland became a player, and I was not going to let this guy get in my way of forming my own European Union by him building up so he can just camp in his little forts forever. So I declared and moved my troops to a large clump of his cities, so it would be easier for me to force peace him because Switzerland is mostly mountainous, which makes it very hard for my tanks to move through. I was not expecting Russia to declare on me, so when he justified and then instantly declared, I was extremely surprised and not prepared. He had a bunch of 10 to 20,000 stack infantry taking over my cities, so I took my troops that were in Hungary and started auto-capturing Russia to try and make sure he doesn't get enough cities. Germany also started to core down, so I made tanks in the Rhineland so I could retake my cities and start the offensive into Russia. Russia kept spamming more infantry to take over my cities, but I did the same thing and pushed them out of my lands. He then invited both Italy and Greece into the war against me, which once again put me in a 3v1 position. Italy was attacking me into France and Germany, Russia was attacking me into Poland and Hungary, and Greece was attacking me into Hungary and Germany. This is no problem for me. As you guys already know, I'm the best Rise of Nations player, so I made tanks and moved them around the mountainous parts of Italy and into Slovenia, which isn't mountainous, so I could go and take over his capital and then start auto-capturing from there. I made more and more tanks, which pushed into Russia out of my mainland and me pushing into his land, and Greece was a bit harder to take care of because I don't have much land bordering him, but auto-capturing always does the trick. And just like that, Italy was completely done for, and Greece and Russia were sending me peace deals, which I will never accept. Because if you're gonna attack me, I'm never gonna let that slide. Russia started falling apart, and I was able to force peace Italy, so I started actually focusing on Greece, and then easily defeated him. My next target was Sweden, who was asking me for Finland after I take over Russia. Like, I am letting him live as a European nation. Then he asked me for more European land, so I declared on him, and then I waited for him to rush his troops into mine before going for his cap. Of course, I won that battle, so he started to full scorch, but because of Hyper Ant's new 20 city scorch limit, he wasn't able to. I expanded some more into Europe before going to Cuba, as he was getting billions of dollars from other big countries, and I was so close to being into debt, which can't happen, so I needed to take him over so I could keep his amazing stacks of cash. I was trying to move away from his destroyer so I could land, and then ended up deciding that sacrificing a single unit would be good for my other tanks to land, but I did not expect my 200 tank stack to defeat 2 destroyers while only taking 3 losses. Anyways, I took him over and then I gave him his cap back because he still wanted to live. After that, I developed with the money that I got from him, but I formed my own European Union as the UK, so make sure to subscribe and watch this video next.